It was supposed to be just another quiet Saturday morning. My wife stepped out into our backyard to water the plants and noticed something strange: splashes, laughter, and music coming from the pool. We don't have kids, and we definitely hadn't invited anyone over. But when she got closer, her jaw nearly hit the ground. A family we didn't even recognize was lounging in our pool, coolers out, towels spread, kids doing cannonballs like it was a hotel. And standing right there like she owned the place was Karen. Our neighbor 2 doors down, sipping iced tea like this was her private resort. My wife, understandably upset, walked over and calmly asked them to leave. That's when things took a wild turn. Karen didn't apologize. She didn't even try to explain. Instead, she scoffed, saying, "Well, we deserve it more than you do. You never use it anyway." Before my wife could even respond, Karen pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her. She told dispatch that my wife was harassing her guests and being aggressive. Meanwhile, her so-called guests kept swimming like nothing was wrong. I was on my way back from the store when I got her text. "Karen called the cops on me. Hurry." My heart dropped. We've dealt with her nonsense before, but this was something else. And with the cops on the way, things were about to escalate fast. Who trespasses on someone's property and then tries to flip the blame? What the officers found when they arrived. Let's just say Karen's version of the story didn't exactly hold water. But what happened next shocked even me and exposed something much deeper going on in our neighborhood that we hadn't seen coming. Stick around, because the truth, it's way more tangled than just a pool party gone wrong. When I pulled into the driveway, I could already see 2 police cruisers parked near the curb. My wife stood by the back gate, arms crossed, clearly trying to stay calm. Karen, of course, was in full performance mode, talking to an officer with exaggerated hand gestures, pointing toward our pool like she was the victim of some great injustice. Her voice carried across the lawn, loud enough for the whole block to hear. Came at us screaming and threatening the kids. It was terrifying. The officer talking to my wife looked more measured, but you could tell he was trying to make sense of 2 totally different stories. I walked up quickly, introduced myself, and asked straight out why someone else's family was in our pool. Karen didn't hesitate. "They're my cousins. They just needed a break. Your pool's always empty. What's the harm?" She said it like it was no big deal, like trespassing and lying to law enforcement was just another Sunday activity. The thing is, this wasn't Karen's first run-in with the neighbors. She'd filed noise complaints over kids playing tag. Once, she left a nasty note on a car just for parking too close to her mailbox. But this bringing people onto someone else's private property, then calling the police when she got caught, this was a whole new level. And still, she stood there, smug, as if she expected to walk away without a scratch. The officer asked if we had cameras, and I nodded. Front and back. Everything's recorded. Karen's face twitched for a split second, just enough to catch. "If you were looking?" That's when I knew there was more to this. It wasn't just about a pool. It felt personal. Like she had a reason to want to stir up trouble. And the worst part, we were only just beginning to see how deep it went as the officers walked around the backyard. One of them started asking Karen's guests for their names and ID. The mood shifted quick suddenly. The laughter stopped, and some of them got out of the pool, grabbing their things. A woman who seemed to be Karen's cousin muttered something about not wanting drama, and gave a side-eye to Karen. It was clear not everyone in that group was on board with what was happening. That's when the real cracks started to show. Inside the house, I pulled up the security footage for the officers. There it was, Karen unlocking our back gate with something in her hand. Maybe a spare key or some kind of tool. The timestamp was clear. Just 20 minutes before my wife found them. One of the officers glanced at the screen and raised an eyebrow. "Do you know how she had access to your gate?" I didn't. But now I was starting to wonder how long she'd been planning this. Later that day, one of our neighbors, Mr. Alden, an older guy who'd lived on the block longer than anyone, knocked on our door. He looked uncomfortable. Probably should have said something earlier, he admitted. A few weeks back, I saw Karen snooping around your side yard. I figured she was just chasing a lost cat or something. But now, his voice trailed off. Turns out, we weren't the first neighbors she'd overstepped with. Meanwhile, my wife started digging through some old HOA emails. That's when another layer got peeled back. Karen used to be on the HOA board until she got voted out last year over a disagreement about, of all things, pool access rules. Apparently, she'd pitched the idea that neighbors should be able to use each other's pools if not in use, and when it got shut down, she left the board fuming. So now we were starting to piece it together. This wasn't random. It was targeted. A sensing told us she wasn't done yet. The next few days were tense. We kept our cameras rolling and stayed alert, locking every gate, double-checking doors, even setting up motion alerts. Karen had gone quiet, too quiet. No notes on the porch, no loud phone calls in her yard, not even her usual passive-aggressive comments when we crossed paths. It felt like the eye of a storm. My wife wasn't sleeping well, and honestly, neither was I. Every car that slowed down near the house made us tense up. Something didn't feel right. Then, on Thursday evening, we came home to find the back gate wide open again. Nothing was missing but footprints near the pool and a few snack wrappers tossed near the bushes. Told us someone had definitely been there. We pulled the footage and saw two teenagers, same kids from Karen's little pool party, sneaking in, laughing, recording themselves on their phones like it was some kind of joke. My wife was furious. We called the non-emergency line and filed a trespassing report attaching the video. That same night, our neighbor across the street, Jamie, called us over. "You guys need to see this," she said, showing us a group chat thread that some of the neighborhood teens were part of. Someone had posted a video labeled "Midnight Splash at Karen's Pool." Except it wasn't Karen's pool. It was ours, and the comments underneath, full of laughing emojis, people asking when the next Karen's swim club night was. One even joked. She said, "The owners are cool with it." It was clear Karen had been feeding these kids lies. She was using her influence over a few of the teens to stir things up, probably just to get back at us. But why go to all this trouble? Why involve kids? That's when Jamie hesitated and said something that sent a chill down my spine. "She's trying to make you two look like the problem." You didn't hear. She's trying to get back on the HOA board, and she's telling people you're harassing neighbors. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a pool. It was a setup. We were right in the middle of it. Just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, we got a letter taped to our front door. No envelope, no return address, just a folded paper with bold black print. Complaint of hostile behavior and safety concerns pending HOA review. At first, I thought it was a prank, but the language was official sounding, almost like something drafted by a legal team. My wife read it twice, then looked at me, confused and angry. What safety concerns? We're the ones being trespassed on. We called the HOA office directly, and that's when the second plot twist hit. A formal complaint had been submitted, with photos attached, grainy screenshots of us taken from odd angles, all clipped from the security footage Karen's crew must have secretly captured while trespassing. They were twisted to make it look like we were confronting innocent visitors and using surveillance to intimidate residents. And to top it off, someone claimed we had verbally threatened children. We were speechless. The HOA manager sounded hesitant, like she knew it didn't add up, but said the complaint had to be reviewed during the next board meeting, which just so happened to be the same one where Karen was scheduled to pitch her re-election bid. That's when it all started to click. Karen wasn't just trying to ruin our reputation. She was setting up a public narrative. If she could paint us as unstable or aggressive homeowners, she could swoop in as the reasonable voice of the neighborhood. But that wasn't even the worst part. That evening, we got a knock at the door. A man in a polo shirt with a city logo stood there holding a clipboard. "We received an anonymous tip about an unpermitted pool renovation," he said, eyeing our backyard. My stomach dropped. Karen had taken it a step further. Now she was dragging in city code enforcement. This wasn't just some petty revenge over HOA drama. This was a full-blown campaign. And if we didn't figure out how to stop it soon, she might actually succeed. We knew the HOA meeting was our only shot to clear our name. The week leading up to it felt like walking a tightrope. Karen had already started planting doubts around the neighborhood, waving around her fake complaint letter and telling anyone who'd listen that we were dangerous and hostile. But what she didn't know was that we'd been collecting every video clip, every message from neighbors, and even screenshots of that group chat where the teens admitted. She told them to sneak into our pool. The night of the meeting, the community center was more packed than usual. People whispered as we walked in, some offering quiet nods, others just watching. Karen stood near the front, smiling confidently in a bright red blazer like she was ready for a campaign speech. When her turn came, she launched into a well-rehearsed story how she was just trying to bring the neighborhood together, how we overreacted, how she feared for the safety of local youth. She even pointed toward the HOA board and said, "This community deserves leadership that cares." But then it was our turn. I stood beside my wife, my hands shaking just a little as I hooked up my laptop to the projector. First, we showed the footage of Karen unlocking our gate, then the kids jumping into our pool, then the messages where they called it Karen's Pool Club. The room got quiet. Karen's smile faded fast. And when we played the audio of one teen admitting she told us it was fine, she said they'd never do anything, the silence turned into murmurs. The board chair cleared her throat and asked Karen directly, "Did you give those kids permission to enter someone else's property without the owner's consent?" Karen stammered, tried to deflect. But the damage was done. The board voted immediately to dismiss her complaint and barred her from running for re-election for breaching community trust. The city official also reviewed our permits, everything checked out. We thought it was over, but as we walked out, one of the parents from the pool video approached us and said something that made my stomach flip. "I'm sorry about all this, but Karen told us she had keys to other houses too." Suddenly, we realized we weren't the only ones she'd been targeting. The moment we got home that night, we reviewed every bit of footage from the last few weeks, looking for anything we might have missed. Sure enough, we found one more clip Karen weeks earlier, near our side gate with what looked like a small keyring. We handed it over to the police along with the neighbor's statement. Turns out, Karen had made a habit of slipping onto a few properties when owners weren't around, using spare keys left under mats or fake rocks. It was subtle, quiet, and until now, unnoticed. Over the next few days, word spread. The neighborhood came together in a way it hadn't in a long time. People started checking locks, cameras, and comparing stories. You realized they'd seen Karen in places she shouldn't have been, too. It was uncomfortable, but also necessary. And while Karen never faced criminal charges likely, because no major theft occurred, she quietly sold her house a month later and moved out without saying goodbye to anyone. As for us, we finally got a real sense of peace. The false complaint was wiped from the HOA records. Our cameras stayed up, but the alerts stopped coming. The kids who were involved apologized, most of them saying they didn't realize the full story and just thought it was harmless fun. We accepted their apologies, especially knowing they'd been misled. The biggest takeaway from all this: Sometimes the biggest threats come wearing a friendly smile and acting like they know what's best for everyone. But truth always finds its way through. We never imagined that something as simple as our pool would uncover such a twisted plan. But we're glad we stood our ground. Because in a tight-knit neighborhood, trust is everything, and once it's broken, there's no going back.